dia a todos.
Bom dia, good morning, everybody.
We're doing this in English, I forgot.
Yeah.
Good morning.
You're not used to English, right?
Yes, I'm quite comfortable.
Okay, so let me introduce our guest. I mean, everybody knows Daniela. She's one of the most acclaimed and internationally recognized Portuguese actresses. She's working both in Portugal and the United States. She's also a TV host, and now she's a movie director or a TV show director. You've been doing both.
Aspiring to become the movie director.
And you are aspiring in a era of quick change, of weird stuff happening. And we have a AI host, which is something that I'm not really comfortable with, but the future is the future.
But evidently it took 3 people to create this, so we've employed 3 people for one
Okay, that's
post,
not bad.
So it's not too bad.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Now let's talk about Hollywood. Let's talk about what is happening in the world and in the industry where you work in. Hollywood has always had a kind of a strange relationship with innovation and technology. It feared some of the things that happened in the past, like television or more recently like streaming. But at the same time, it has incorporated a lot of technology to advance its creative art form. Now we are entering a different stage where there are completely artificial intelligence created actors. So let's start there. Do you think that your job is at risk right now?
I don't. No, I don't think my job is at risk at all. Namely because I think that the creative industry is big enough for everybody. Mm-hmm. I think there will be movies made 100% with AI characters. Will they be able to anytime soon emote the same way as a human being does? I don't think so. But that doesn't mean that people won't want to watch it, that it's not going to be exciting. I mean, we obviously already have such an integration of AI and technology within the business as it is. I mean, when you have a stunt, for example, and the stunt double is riding this motorcycle and there's explosions and they're not wearing a helmet, they then take the actor's face and put it on the stunt double's face. Right. I mean, that's AI. We're replacing a stunt double's face so it looks like the actor is, unless you're Tom Cruise, in which you're actually jumping off mountains on a motorcycle with a parachute. But for the most part, these technologies are already inserted in our business, and they're used as tools. And that's where I think AI and technology most definitely has its place. Will we, as human beings, actors, be fully replaced one day? I don't think so, because I think there's an audience for everything. Now, I also think that, for example, I personally don't want to watch a film where the voices and the faces are not even influenced by human beings, real human beings. Right. But that's because I'm of a generation, as perhaps most of us here, where we're used to seeing human beings, we're used to seeing human emotion, and this is what makes us want to watch a movie. We want to relate somehow to what we're watching. And so the newer generations, kids that are growing up with AI as a majority of what they're doing and understanding how to use it, they may not feel the need to watch human beings because they're just growing up with a different exposure than what we grew up with. We're okay without phones and with phones because we grew up with and without them.
Right.
Kids are not growing up without technology now, so what will their perception and need creatively be once they're adults? I think the psychology of our generation versus the younger generation is going to be very different in relation to these things.
That's actually interesting. Do you think that the acceptance of a world where there's a movie where all the characters are AI generated, all the actors are AI generated, do you think that's something that our generation will have an issue with, but younger generations probably won't?
I don't know, and I think that that's most of what makes people feel so scared of AI and technology in our business is the sheer uncertainty of where it will go, how people will receive them. The other really interesting thing about AI in our business, and now I'm not going to relate it simply to the acting portion of it, but for example, writers. Right? You and I were talking about writing earlier and how AI can help refine, it can help introduce perhaps new ideas into the writing. I was speaking to one of the writers that I worked with on my show for many, many years. He's an executive producer. He's very seasoned. He started, before there was any technology, let alone sort of Final Draft, which is a software that writers use to structure their scripts. And he was explaining how the entry-level jobs, in fact, the co-founder of Anthropic was commenting on this on a podcast that he did. The entry-level jobs are most certainly in many industries going to probably disappear, because the role of an assistant can now be replaced by plug something into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever the technology is. And so those entry-level jobs might go away. But what we forget is that that's also the beginning of a supply chain that then leads to the more advanced sort of CEO position jobs or a showrunner job. So what happens is the assistant doesn't have the job anymore. So now they're not learning from the more experienced writer. That writer is now not on set to experience what it's like, the idea of managing a whole production, which is enormous. I mean, you can have 200, 500 people in a production. Managing actors, managing writers, managing the financing, managing everything. So then, if they're not having experience on set, how can they become somebody who then runs a set and becomes the connection point between a production company and the financing and what actually goes on creatively on set? So now, the short term, yeah, you're saving a lot of money with AI and technology by replacing certain jobs. But what you're failing to see is the long-term issue where at some point you're going to have completely inexperienced people running a show.
Right.
And that will become a problem, and that will affect the creative process and the bottom line in the long run. So short run, we're fine, but
we never know what's going to
issue.
happen in the future, especially in an industry that is totally profit-driven, obviously,
Right.
or mostly profit-driven, which is understandable, obviously.
It's called show business.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, AI offers, lower production costs, offers the opportunity to work with people who are technologically designed, so they have no salaries, no residuals, no contracts. Do you think Hollywood is ready to resist the temptation of going almost fully AI, or do you think that's not even the question? The question is, how fast are they going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, the toughest thing is that AI and technology are developing a lot faster than we're able to adapt to it.
Right.
That's the biggest issue. And again, I think that's what's the most fear-mongering and the thing that creates the most uncertainty in people, is we can't keep up with how fast it's moving. Will Hollywood adapt to it? I think yes, because I think we can see just from general scientific evolution, adaptation is survival. So we have to adapt somehow. I think what needs to happen for sure is regulation. I think we need to start to protect people, to protect the process. We just need to start regulating what is allowed and what isn't allowed. I think AI is amazing as a tool. I do not think we should fully replace people, even though I understand the cost factor and it makes productions cheaper, et cetera. Right. And listen, I myself use AI. If I have an idea as a director and I want to show what that shot looks like, I can draw, but not everybody can draw. And so I sometimes will go, put in the instructions, put in the prompts into ChatGPT, create a bedroom. The light is coming from the side. It's sunset. This is the mood. Make it cinematic. Put a little grain in it, etc. And it creates an amazing picture. Once upon a time, you would have to hire somebody to do a storyboard. Now these things can make the storyboard. So you are definitely skipping sort of people. Right. But when it comes to using people's likeness, to using people's voices. I completely forget the name of the Chinese company. I'm sure that you guys have all seen it. That was this incredible stunt fight, the Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise fight, and there was emotion, and it was so incredibly well done. They launched this. They started getting a cease and desist letter from all the studios because they don't own the rights to be able to use people's faces and voices without permission. And this is where regulations and laws and are important, because it's when you start taking away people's personal identities to create something in a fake way, that becomes a huge problem. And this is what I think needs to not be allowed to happen.
Actually, there's probably a misconception about when you think about the United States, we think about a country that is totally opposed to regulation, although in your industry, there's a lot of regulations.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a lot unions and guilds and
Yes.
right.
Yes, yes, absolutely. There's the writers' union, there's the directors' union, there's the actors' union, the producers.
They have power. They have real power there.
Well, they do, and we saw that a couple of years ago when
Right.
the writers' strike happened and Hollywood completely stopped.
Right.
And of course, the actors joined in because it's true. The writers are probably one of the most valuable assets that we have in the making of a movie. It is literally the roadmap to a movie being made. And, you know, they're very undervalued. They really were undervalued. So is it perfect now, this strike? But yes, of course they have power because everything stopped.
And they're paying attention to what's happening and
Absolutely.
right.
Well, and one of the things that they were able to implement in their contract at the time was they cannot be replaced by AI, but they themselves can use AI as a tool when they're writing.
Which makes sense.
Makes total sense,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, absolutely.
As an actress, do you ever use AI to improve your skills? Is there anything that AI can bring to your job?
As an actor, I have not yet used any AI to improve skills. If I have to learn an accent or anything like that, what I'll do is I will literally YouTube somebody from Ireland speaking or whatever it is. So I tend to try and learn from, you know, from human beings who are already online and posting videos of themselves teaching accents or languages or something like that. I find it easier to hear that and learn.
But would you consider it as an option, as a tool that you could go to?
I would look.
Depending on how the technology evolves, would you use it?
Yeah, I think I would definitely look, but that's more of the work that I would do on my own, you know, in the privacy of my own home. But I don't think that that would stop me from hiring a dialect coach. And I'm speaking about accent specifically.
Right.
I don't think that would stop me from hiring a dialect coach because this person can give me actual feedback. Well, I'm not sure the AI would give me like the most precise feedback, like make it more nasal or it's more in the throat or like, you know. So.
In Hollywood, there's one of the most known actors, Ben Affleck, who not only speaks frequently about how artificial intelligence can connect with the way the business is being done. He also has created a company that works on AI.
Post-production specifically.
Right. Do you think that's the most valuable area where artificial intelligence can increase the value of the movie industry?
In my limited understanding of post-production, I think so. I mean, you know, you sort of have a guy who you say, hey, we need this kind of editing, we need these kind of special effects, we need this and that middleman that would basically take you to the right place will no longer be needed, because now you have places like this one that Ben Affleck is creating where you kind of have a full service post-production process. You know, you're kind of eliminating a lot of the middlemen that would guide you to the right place, and it was multiple places and now there's just one. So, but Ben Affleck, it's interesting, he's one of the people that I've listened to who made me feel a little bit more comfortable about where this is going, because I myself felt that fear, if you will, of what's coming and will we be replaced. And the more I listen to him, and Matthew McConaughey as well, he said it too, it's like, it's here. There's no point in fearing like it's already here, and the people that will get left behind are those who are not going to learn how to use it, or who refuse to use it, or are taking some sort of moral stance where I'm like, I refuse to use technology because I'm going to stay human. It's like, you can stay human and still use a washing machine, right? And watch your television and all these things. And we had the Industrial Revolution. Like, things are going to change. And like I said before, it's about learning to adapt to these things and learn how to use it. Am I ever going to be completely proficient as much as my children one day will be? Absolutely not. But I can accept what's coming and welcome it and learn to be a part of it. But yes, sorry, going back to your question, with Ben Affleck, he is definitely focusing on the post-production aspect of it, but he was very specific when I heard him talk about, like, but this is after the movie's been shot, meaning the actors and the filmmaking aspect and the first assistant directors and directors, like, all of this has been done and shaped. Now we're just in the post-production.
Just to give context for people who don't know what post-production is, so what what's involved
So
in post-production?
Right. So post-production basically would be after you shoot the movie, you've got your scenes and you've got all the explosions done, stunts, etc. And post-production would be the editing, cutting the scenes together, sound design, for example, which, believe it or not, is so incredibly important. Something can feel super disjointed, and then all of a sudden you put the proper sound design to it, you make the voices heard very clearly, and it just feels like there's a flow. It's the people who add the music, the composers, coloring to make sure that all of the scenes have a cohesive coloring and visual image to it, aesthetic. So all of this is post-production. It's basically what makes you enjoy a movie afterwards, because as a director, when I receive the first cut, the first edit of a movie, it's like a punch to the stomach. It's awful. Because it's not because of the actors, it's not because I made bad choices as a director, it just feels like it's not tightened, I can make a cake, but if I don't make the layers of the cake straight and pretty and smooth the cream, it's still gonna taste good, but it just doesn't look good. So, but yes, that's post-production. It's what comes after you shoot the movie.
And that's where artificial intelligence can save a lot of money on,
Yeah.
and probably take a few jobs.
For sure, it would take a few jobs. Yes, I mean, you could probably, instead of having a composer who's working for months and months and months, we've seen what AI can do with music nowadays. Some of the most trending songs on TikTok right now are all AI made, which breaks my heart that I'm enjoying them, but I am. It's like, turn this modern song into Thong Song by Cisco is now an amazing gospel piece. And you're like, I'm feeling emotional about underwear. It's just ridiculous. And so, you then program the AI and say, this is my movie, this is what I want it to feel like. Go and make the music. And then even if you have a person who's going to supervise and make sure that it feels good and it makes sense and makes small alterations, that's one person when maybe it used to be a team of 5 or 10.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be, but who's that guy who's going to bother learning the AI to be able to work the music and be the person that they can come to for the human touch?
Right. So the industry is going to change, obviously. And from one of the answers that you gave me, you talked about being afraid of what's coming. Is that the environment right now? Are people in the industry fearing, anxious, or what's happening there?
I think there's a little bit of everything. As I said, I personally started from a place of fear.
Right.
I don't like being in a place of fear, and I find that fear comes from not understanding something. So I have made a point to kind of create an algorithm on my social media where all the things I'm fed about AI are positive things coming and not, they're gonna take our jobs. So just, I think, talking to the right people, and again, politics, anything, everybody's gonna try and sensationalize something that's not fully understood, right? And so it's just a question of cutting through all of the noise. Listen to podcasts, listen to the people who are running these things, listen to what they have to say, listen how they're explaining things. Like I said, the co-founder of Anthropic, I forget his name right now, he was seemingly being very open about what they do know, what they've already achieved, what they're not sure of, what's still in the inception stages. And it reassured me, because like I said, it seemed like he was being pretty transparent. He wasn't shying away from it. He's like, yeah, introductory jobs will be eventually eliminated. It just is what it is. And I thought that honesty was a good thing,
Although Anthropic has a stand on what AI should be used and not used for, a little different from other companies in the business, and we see what's happening with their relation with the Pentagon and with the war in Iran.
And ads. For example, during the Super Bowl, Claude had a really, I don't know if anybody saw this specific ad, but they were trying to say, while everybody else is going to add advertisement, we are not going to do that. And the way they did it, which was so clever, so you see a guy who's basically on a therapist's chair, and he's speaking to his therapist. The therapist is AI. So she's a little mechanical, but it's an actress doing it. And he's like, I'm having problems with my mom. What should I do? It's being tough to communicate with her. And the AI the therapist says, well, why don't you try going for a walk with her, or maybe take her out to dinner? And if that doesn't work, you should go on to cougars.com for older women if you're searching for older women. And he was like, what? Talking about problems with my mom, and now this thing is advertising dating older women. And so the point is, Claude is like, other places will do this to you, we will not. It was such a clever commercial. And so yeah, you know, obviously Anthropic has, by the way, I'm not sponsored by Anthropic. I just appreciate thus far where they've stood in relation to not allowing governments into their system, and the fact that they plan on not having advertisement, because then, you know, that's going to skew everything once again. Now we're being influenced by someone else's money, if you will.
And they seem to have like an ethics boundary or morals boundary. I don't know which way to position this. Maybe it's just marketing, but at least they're at the center of a very interesting discussion.
Yes, for the time being.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about commercials. There's been a lot of discussion about the use of artificial intelligence in commercials. There's like food chains that use fully artificial intelligence characters and actors. There's brands, famous brands, who get a lot of slack for using it. Do you think there's like a glimpse of hope of the limits of where you can use AI because the consumers are not really into that kind of stuff because they feel too much artificiality in there?
I mean, to be honest with you, if we're talking about food commercials, it's always been fake. Even when you see real food, for example, oh, this pizza's amazing, look at all the cheese. That's not cheese, it's glue, because it looks better on camera.
Right.
So we're already promoting the way things look and how pretty and how amazing, how tasty they are. It's already fake, right? With a pizza also, again, they pull the piece, but they've nailed the other pieces to the table so that they don't come up, because everybody knows when you order a pizza and you pull the first piece up, all the other pieces come too. So, you know, or with a burger, like, oh, look how shiny that lettuce is. Yeah, because they've put like shellac on it. So everything is already, you know, in a commercial, it's always going to be fake because they want to make it look perfect.
So if they want to use AI, go ahead and use AI.
I don't know that in that instance it's going to make a huge amount of difference. The only difference is, like I said, is how many people are involved in making that happen. With AI, it becomes less people are involved. You know, it's a quick prompt and it gives you the perfect hamburger, the perfect pizza.
Right.
So you know, this is where the uncertainty lies. I think people's reception of what's happening now is going to really depend on what generation you belong to. Because my perception will not be the same as my kids' perception. And I don't even give them phones. My kids have no technology. They don't have social. They're 12 and 9, and they don't have their own phone. They don't have their own iPad. They don't have social media. They don't have anything. And even so, and now I'm questioning, am I doing them a disservice? Because while other people are going to move forward pretty quickly in understanding how all of this works, we don't. We sort of opt for a lot more.
Do you think that's the secret for educating newer generations on the human edge? Speaking of the theme of this conversation, do you think that there's a way to tell these kids that grow up with all the tools, all the screens, all the AI tools, used to see AI-generated short movies, characters speaking to them, whatever it is, do you think there's a way to educate them about the advantages and the uniqueness of a human being based storytelling?
I think that's a great question. Yes, I do. I think the influence of the parents' lived experience to the next generation will be everything. So what I'm going to be able to transmit to them about the importance of human connection, human emotion, but also using AI as a tool is going to be very different as what they will pass on to their children. I mean, a great example, my family is in the audience today, and we were just talking about, you know, my mother was a teenager during the 1974 April 25th revolution. So her lived experience with that is incredible, and the stories, to me, it's just history. I wasn't there, right? So to me, it's something I learned from a distance. So same thing, my grandparents lived through the Second World War, so what they transmitted to my mother and how they educated and whatever their fears were, whatever their concerns were, are very different than what she transmitted to me, and it's different to what I transmit to my kids. So I think that my children will still have a very grounded emotional connection because we'll understand that this is going to be more important than only communicating online. Again, it's a tool that you can use to optimize what you as a human are already doing. But I don't know what's going to happen with the following generation because I don't know what they will be exposed to. I have no way of answering that question. All I know is it's going to be different than what I'm telling them.
And you don't even know what's happening in their generation because
Correct.
the way you're educating your kids, even the lack of access to technology is something that makes them different. Do you have any experience in, I don't know, in school? They're in school, obviously. Do you have any experience of how different some parents are educating their kids
Oh,
towards
for sure.
technology?
There are children in kindergarten, they're 6 years old and they already have phones. And it just, I'm like, what is the benefit of giving a 6-year-old a phone? There is no benefit to this at all. I know, I'm sorry, we're all technology people here, but let's be honest, when it comes to a developing brain, there's no need to give a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old child a phone. Unless one parent lives in a different country and there's actually like a logistical problem. This is my opinion, and this is why we don't give our children's phones, not for a while. It's in school, they definitely learn, I think, what's important. They can all make presentations. My kids are plenty better versed in Canva than I am because they're already, even at these ages, they have to present their work with these tools, which is great. I love it. They request a specific picture and it pops up and they fit it on their thing,
But you bring the human edge to that kind of experiences to them?
Yeah, I think so, and I also think their school does. I think their school does as well, because they have to make the presentation, but then they have to stand up and explain what their presentation is in front of a bunch of parents, the science fair, or like I said, whatever they're doing. They stand in the classroom in different sections and the parents rotate and they go and they have to go through their presentation and talk about, this is the thing I did and this was the experiment I did and these were the difficulties that I went through when I had to do this experiment. And so, yes, there's still very much a human connection, learning to speak in public, learning to look people in the eye and explain what you're doing.
Right.
So again, it's a tool, it's not a replacement.
And do you think parents are aware of that? Because I've had some experiences of, it's interesting that we start talking about families instead of the industry itself, but we're kind of preparing newer generations to deal with what's happening nowadays. And there's a lot of dependency already in terms of the newer generations on what AI can bring and what AI can do. And I'm speaking about newer generations, but I think some of the people of my generation are also very into what AI can do for them. Not necessarily as a tool, but sometimes as a replacement of what they used to do, because it's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper, if you will.
But you are using it as a tool. You're not replacing yourself with it. You're making yourself more efficient.
Right.
Right? It's like, I'm going to ask it to write this long email while I do something else.
Right.
And then, by the way, I do that all the time. If I have to write to an actor and I'm, hoping that they'll be in my movie or whatever it is, if I'm hoping to work with an actor, obviously I know their work. I wouldn't want to hire somebody that I was unfamiliar with their work, obviously.
Right.
So I know the kinds of things that I want to say to them and how their work has impacted me and why I think they should do this work with me. But I still sometimes, I'll write it myself, then I'll plug it into ChatGPT or whatever, and I'll say, refine. Make it sound a little more eloquent, a little better. And then I'll read it, and then I'll go back, and I'll change the things that don't sound like me. But it's now helped me phrase things more succinctly, or do you know what I mean? So yeah, I
it helps you improve your human skills.
Yes, I think so. But I would want my children to learn how to write an essay first.
Right.
And then once you're proficient in writing and creativity, then use it as a tool. But if we introduce it too early, I think, I am no psychologist, but I am found that then the brain becomes lazy. And there have been studies made that people who have only relied on AI now, even adults, like our actual brain capacity and that is being reduced. like biologically.
Right.
And so I don't prefer that to happen.
Daniela, just one last question. I don't know if people here are aware of Tilly Norwood. She's the most famous AI actress, completely created as artificial intelligence. Would you ever hire her for one of your movies?
Not in anything that I'm working on now. No, everything that I gravitate to as an actor or as a director is much more human growth related, like emotional growth, kids learning skills, having children be in an adult situation, seeing through the perspective of children. In this particular case, I'm working on a film that is about that. That is about two teenage boys who sort of become the best version of themselves by helping each other out navigate a very complicated world.
And so far, no AI can convey that.
Not thus far, no. I'm not saying never, but for now, or maybe I'll create my own actress and take ownership, and I'll make the money by using her instead of paying someone else.
That's a good idea. Daniela, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you guys for being
morning.
here today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.